Hey y'all, welcome back to the show. You know who it is. It's your boy Jay Hennahan, and I'm back with another episode of How to Kill a Sacred Cow. Tonight on the podcast, we have returning, once again, Mr. Vikter Bang. I wanted to have him on the show so we could talk a little bit about his book, The 100 Degree Challenge, and some of the new stuff he's been putting out on Instagram and TikTok. Just some fantastic content. Questions arising as to what is the nature of reality, how should we interpret it, what are dreams, what are we doing here, what's our purpose in life, the whole shebang. And I love this dude and all the stuff that he's doing, so I wanted to have him back on the show, maybe flush out some of the stuff we didn't get to talk about last time he was on. Now, if anybody would like to help out the show, you can always go to howtokillasacredcow.com, and there on the homepage, there are several ways that you can help out. One of them is the PayPal donation page. It's a little button. There's also a QR code to my Coinbase wallet if you want to put a little ka-ching in my wallet. Also, there is a banner down there at the bottom of the homepage as well, where you can subscribe to Audible. Those are audiobooks that you get one audiobook a month, and I get a commission off of that. And you can also go to the library portion of the website, and you can buy any one of the books from any of the authors that I've had on the show. All fantastic works of fiction and nonfiction, whatever floats your boat. Those are all great works there, and you will also find down there in the library section, and this will also be in the show notes, a copy of the 100 Degree Challenge from Mr. Vikter Bang. Now, without any further ado, I would like to bring to you, once again, Mr. Vikter Bang. All right, Vikter Bang, it's great to have you back on the show. How you been, man?
Man, I've been good. How about yourself, Jay? Good to be back, man. Appreciate you having me.
I've been fantastic, man. It's great to have you back on. I've been wanting to have you on for a couple of months now, and I saw a sweet spot in my schedule. I was like, I got to get this dude in. He's been putting out some fantastic content, made sure that I went through and read your book again, The 100 Degree Challenge, and I really love your approach to how you tackle this new media. I really love the way that you're exploiting TikTok, Instagram. These are like very millennial heavy platforms, and even like Gen X, Gen Y platforms. And I love the creativity you bring to it. You're all over the place. You're insightful, spiritual, something that I feel like you have something that everybody can benefit from. And one of the things I wanted to speak with you is like maybe take a couple of the ideas from your 100 Degree Challenge book and expand on them a little bit and see where you're getting some of the influence for some of your more creative stuff that you're doing there on Instagram and TikTok. So Vic, what was the impetus for writing the 100 Degree Challenge?
Yeah, so it really was an exercise to see what can we agree on as facts. Like, what can we agree on as facts? Not one perspective or another perspective. Like, I hear people say, well, my truth, or that's not my truth, or things of that nature. But is there a such thing as objective truth? You know, is there a such thing as the truth? And what can we agree on as the truth? Because, for instance, you hear, we just haven't seen it from my perspective. It's a 6 or a 9. You know, you're probably seeing that picture where the person says you haven't seen it from my perspective. But the whole exercise is to say, well, when someone is writing a number, it's either a 6 or a 9. You know, most of the time, if I'm going to write a number, it's not going to be ambiguous. It's going to be either a 6 or a 9. And I understand getting it mixed up, but when you play pool, the 6 and the 9 are differentiated by the line. Right? There's a line under the 9. That's how you know it's a 9. So it's not either or. So that is one thing. And the 100 Degree Challenge is attempting to be that line to show that maybe it's not a 6 or a 9. It is actually a 9. And to see if we can agree on that. And I try to use simple things, not try to make it complicated. And the intent is to see what we can agree on as basics. And then the challenge gets more complicated as we take those steps And those things that we agree on are going to bring us to the being that's doing the agreeing. And that's really the foundation that I want to get people to come to. So it's really a set of steps to say this exists, this is true, this exists, this is true, and you're building on that. But the way that I'm taking the reader is to themselves at the end of the day, and showing logically that the realization that a lot of the spiritual community is talking about is factual, or at least can be looked at logically to show that it's a possibility, and that it's just not airy fairy stuff, and just trying to keep it in the realm of what can we agree on as facts, what is something that you can experience yourself and not take anyone's word for it. So it's really just kind of based on that to see what can we agree on, because we're so divided with this, that, and the other. What can we agree on as facts? And I know some things we don't even agree on as that, but I try to make these things simple. I use mainstream definition. I know I tried to show them a simple way to get to that point, just using mainstream things, and really try to just get it as simple as possible.
And one of the things I really liked about the book and the way that it was structured also is that you have this comfortability with ambiguity, right? So you have to also accept that not only is there belief in faith, but there's also dogma. And a lot of people have trouble accepting that, especially because dogma can be found outside of religion, but that's of course a whole nother that's a whole nother topic anyway. But that all of these things have to exist in reality anyway, so it's best to maybe confront them head on and to talk openly about them. And that's some of the great aspects of your work, I think. And I love the idea of going from 0 degrees to 100, if we're thinking in Celsius, because water boils at 100. Exactly. I remember having this discussion with somebody. I'm an Uber driver, part-time, and he was like, "What is it with you Americans and not switching to Celsius?" And I was like, "Dude, don't even get me started." You know what I mean? Like, I'm done with this Fahrenheit bullshit. He's like, "It doesn't even make sense. What is it? 130 degrees? What is it? That doesn't make any sense." I was like, "I know." But how did you decide to break this up into degrees? Because once you get into the 80 and 90 degrees, you start going every 2 degrees instead of every 10. What was the thought process on differentiating it like that?
Yeah, so it's part of the initial part of it, and I'm trying to walk the reader through the basics, and then it gets more complicated, because the devil gets more into the details. But starting off is just basic things like, does matter exist? Does nature exist? Just things that would be duh. But I've had instances where talking to people, like, matter is 20 degrees, I think, on a 100-degree challenge, and they didn't get past 20. They didn't understand the difference between physical matter and someone saying, what's the matter? So I was surprised at that, so you can't assume that people understand what you're talking about. But I guess that's part of the problem too, is language in itself. So that's why I try to put the definition. So when we're saying we can agree on something, we have the definition and say we agree that it's this specific thing. But it's laid out with the more simple things, the more obvious things, and then we get into more of the things that are not as simple. But those items, as you go higher in the degree, we're not getting into the weeds of it. So, for example, and you mentioned before, it's a play on water changing state, going from 0 degrees ice to 100 degrees steam. So it's just a change of state of the same thing. We're just talking on this and using it as a parable for the individual, that there's another state to the human being that is there, and it doesn't require adding anything to the human. It's really uncovering what you are, removing those layers, and using the parable of water, that it takes 100 degrees for it to change state. Even 98-degree water is still water. So if you don't take those extra degrees, you won't experience a change in state. So just to show that that's possible, and then lay out a way to get there. Now, the first portion of it deals with more mainstream things, more things externally. And then as you get to the higher degrees, that's where it gets to a more internal thing. So those are things that are not going to be easily measured and more experience and more things that one has to contemplate. So it was broken out based on the simplicity of it. The smaller degrees are the things that would be easier for people to agree on. And as you get up in degrees, it's going to be more division or more conversation that may need to happen. Like, for example, religion is 84 degrees. And part of the reason why I chose 84 degree for religion is because at the time when I was putting it together, there was a poll that 84% of people believe in a higher power and things of that nature. So I tried to line that up with the percentage of the people as well. So 84 degrees. If you can't see past religion, faith, and things of that nature, then you can be in the 84 degrees, 84% percentile of people that have religious beliefs and may not go any further than that. So that's where they stop. So they'll just be 84 degree water, and they may not know that they can be steam as well. So it's kind of laid out in that sense to where as you go higher, it gets, it really becomes more internal, more introspective. So, and those things are harder to measure and more subjective. So that's kind of how I try to lay it out.
That's like that's a super cool idea, actually. And to hear it laid out that way makes it make a lot more sense as well. Because some of that you can intuit while reading it, but to hear it back that way, that's really awesome. And so what do you think are some of the hangups that you were speaking about earlier, where it's hard to get people to agree on these basic things like intelligence exists, nature exists, a higher power exists? What do you think are some of the hangups that prevent people from accepting even these baseline truths that would be necessary to have a more nuanced conversation about everything that comes later?
Yeah. So the experience I've had is with mainly family members. Now, I've had a couple of instances where I went through it with other people, but the majority of the feedback is with family members. And I come from a religious background, so they're religious people. And in going through it, one of the things that I saw is people can agree that these things exist, because the first stage is, do these things exist? Are they true? Are they real? Are they in this reality? And we're not talking, are they good or bad? Is one right or is one wrong? We're just saying, does this exist? And, and what is the definition of that? So using the religious aspect of it, people will agree with a lot of things, even up to that point. I use my family. I did a talk, and it's actually online, where we had a family reunion, and normally in the family, I'm the quiet person, this, that, and the other, but I felt compelled to show them what I was working on, and I knew I didn't have the opportunity. I knew I wanted to take advantage of the opportunity because I had 4 generations of people. It was like, I don't know, maybe 50 people in the house or something like that, and I wanted to get their feedback and really kind of see where I was and if I was on the right path with presenting the information. And in presenting it, they didn't stop at anything. They allowed me to go all the way through. But then when it was over, when the camera stopped recording, they went back to the religion thing. And then they were just caught up on that aspect, And part of the reason I'm setting it up this way is for us not to get caught up on those things, because that's part of the rabbit hole. There's 4,200 different religions, and no one really takes the time to check the other. It's over 4,200 to check the other 4,000 to make sure that they're comparing, and no one really does that. Most of the time, they just accept the beliefs of their parents, who accept the beliefs of their parents, and not many people question. So, and people identify with those things. So they may agree that religion exists, but in their mind goes to, well, what's the right religion? Or how does this fit into my belief system? Instead of just seeing belief systems exist, let's move on to the next thing. Let's talk about the dogmatic things and things of that nature, just to show that they exist and get past that. But a lot of people get caught up in those things that are dividing us now. And the intent of the exercise is to show that regardless of what belief system you have, the more important thing is the being having this belief system. Like, do you understand what that being is, who that being is, how powerful that being is, what that being is capable of, instead of just funneling all of that through a belief system. So in the times that I've spoken to, I've even had family members get all the way to the end and they would agree, like, oh yeah, hey, I'm a spiritual being having a human experience. Okay, that makes sense. But what about Jesus, and what about this, and all of that? Like, they don't grasp the concept of where they are. They don't really see where they are in the journey. Like you're on the same level as those guys, at the end of the day, but they still want to put someone else on a pedestal just because of their belief system. So that's some of the things that I've seen people get caught up on.
What's funny is I've seen that presentation, but I thought, I had seen that presentation, but I thought it was at a like a work conference. And I remember thinking, like, bro, what are you doing?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
yeah, right. Yeah.
And so I'm glad to hear that it was at a family reunion. That makes more sense.
Yeah.
And, it's interesting too that people get caught up in which religion is the right one, because I've had people on the show that have done a lot of work into this, that a lot of these religions in their base origin story, they're all the same story. Yes. Syncretism, the star myths, all these things, they all over the world, all these they seem to have a similar origin story, or the same origin story, and. Mm-hmm. And so, do you think your experience as an engineer kind of primed you to think in this way about spirituality, or were you already like in your development through life already thinking of things this way?
No. So I do think engineering background does help as far as logically trying to present things, making things make sense, and being able to present it to someone else so that it makes sense to them, and trying to simplify, potentially complex things. So that I tried to use those skills and apply them to this. But for me, I spent, I didn't really start my journey. I started off as a Christian. I was in the Church of Christ, and I believed everything my parents told me, and I thought that was the way. And then I really started to look at things and started to question things. And I think we talked about this before. 9/11 was one of the things that really got me to looking, like it just didn't seem right. Just didn't seem right at all. So then I started kind of looking at conspiracies and things of that nature. Went down those rabbit holes, and saw that there was some truth to this, and even other architects and engineers were also, putting science and data and facts to these things, not just from a conspiracy standpoint, but just from a logical standpoint. Like Building 7, for example, like a small pocket of fire does not make a building fall into its own footprint. That just doesn't happen, right? And talking to firefighters, like I know friends that are firefighters, and they don't pull buildings. They don't. That's not something they do. You can't pull a building in that short amount of time, right? It takes all of these things control. So that thing. So that showed me that there's a possibility that we're not being told the full story and all of that. And I got to the spiritual side of it because I was like, okay, well, I don't want to be someone that just sits back if this is happening and let it happen. Like I want to speak out against it. I want to, do something to help, because if they can do this, then what else can they do? They're still out there potentially, right? So, but I saw a lot of the division and things that are in these communities with, they see something wrong, but there's this theory and there's this theory, and then you got people that are trying to expose the truth fighting over each other over which version of truth is. And to me, that's wasn't very constructive. And I understand that perspective because we're trying to get to something that we don't have all the information on. So we're just kind of going off theory because we don't have all the data. So, we're trying to figure things out. So I understand that. But what that led me to was, okay, well, what is the biggest thing? What is the one thing that would unravel it all? What is the biggest conspiracy? What is the biggest thing that we're not being told? And then that's what led me down the whole spiritual path. And so from an engineering standpoint, I said, okay, I started looking into the different religions and all of that. And I said, well, let me just see if I can reprogram myself. Let me just start from scratch. What could I prove was true to myself, with just nothing? It's just me and nature. I don't want anyone else's input. What could I prove to myself? And so then I started to look at nature, and that's where I started. And then looked at just the intelligence, the geometry, the patterns, all the things that show that there is there is the potential for an intelligent force behind this creation. For this just to happen randomly in this specific way, is improbable. And there's a potential that it's random, and then there's potential that there's creativity and intelligence behind it. So I said, well, if there is creativity and intelligence behind it in this force, and I did determine that did exist. That, to me, that's more probable. To me, that passes Occam's razor more than the alternative. Then the next question was, what is my relationship to this thing? And then that led me to really looking at myself, and eventually I ended up having an experience. And then once I had that experience, I saw that this was real. And I had intellectually in my mind, it was like, this makes sense, but I didn't have the experience of like seeing that it like from my own eyes. So then when that happened, it was like, well, hell, I mean, I'm not gonna lie to myself. I'm not gonna lie to anyone else. And then at that point, I wanted to be proved wrong, because if this is true and this is the good news, then one of the conspiracies is, why isn't this not mainstream? Why is this something that we're taught since the beginning? This is the foundation of our reality. So then I set out to start talking and speaking on that, because to me, that realization, that internal realization for each individual, is really what's going to change the system, because then you change the pixels on the screen and the nodes on the screen, and then that changes the picture, because we make up the screen, if you will. And since then, part of it was putting out the content that I would have liked to seen on my journey, because I bumped my head on a lot of things, went down a lot of places that didn't have any value and things of that nature. So I sought to create the things that would have helped me to hopefully help other people, and also speak out on it and really see for myself what I can do to get this out there, just so that people are informed and are able to see this alternative. And it's not about anything to do with me. Like I say all the time, I don't own the truth. No one owns the truth. So it's either true or it's not. But the thing is, this discussion it's not even part of the equation. It's like G.I. Joe, knowing it's half the battle. Well, we're already losing on one side of it because we don't have the information. So it's really equipping the people to know that, for one, there's an alternative, because a lot of people think, well, it is what it is and we can't do anything about it, and just ride the storm out, versus taking control and realizing that we have the power. We always had the power, just like in Wizard of Oz, you have to, like, when you look back at it, you can see a lot of things that are hidden in plain sight. There's a lot of things that are hidden in plain sight. But that was the whole, I know it's a long answer, but that's the whole journey of kind of getting there. So it started from an intellectual standpoint. Does this make sense on paper? Does this check out from a logical standpoint? And then the inner realization. And from that standpoint, it was off to the races. It was like, you're going to have to prove me wrong. because I'll try to prove myself wrong. I'll try to shoot holes in it because I don't want to be someone out here talking about this stuff publicly and I don't know what I'm talking about. I have my own experience. I haven't done my research or haven't, done those things. So once I got those ducks lined up, it was like, well, I want to put this out and let's see the reactions from it. And if something is off or something is wrong, like the 100-degree challenge, for instance, then it's not going to hurt my feelings. That's just going to make it better. That just means we got one step closer. That just means it's refined more. So that's why I don't mind the questioning and all that. The truth is the truth. It doesn't mind questioning. It doesn't hide in the dark. It is what it is. So if this is reality and this is truth, it should stand up to everything. So part of my journey is to put it there and show the people and see if they can refute it. And if not, then there's something there. And then it's up to their own person to have their experience.
Yeah, and something you had just said reminded me of, you ever see True Detective? Woody Harrelson and Matthew McConaughey?
Yeah.
So in the last few seconds of the last episode, they're looking out there at the stars, and they had said something along the lines of, it's looking up at the stars, it's light versus darkness, and it looks like the darkness is winning. And then Matthew McConaughey says, well, given that everything started out as darkness, I would say that the light is gaining a lot of ground. Oh no, it was that Woody Harrelson said that the darkness has more territory. So the light is gaining ground, and that is really like a very hopeful way to look at a dark kind of a picture of things. And it seems to align with some of the ways that you're describing, your view on spirituality and truth emerging from the darkness. And, it really feels like there's only been a few times in history where this type of inquiry has been possible, and this time more than the other times.
Yeah.
And so I've heard you mention a couple of times this experience that you had. Is this something that's a little too personal to speak about, or would you like to speak about it?
No, it's part of the story. So it's not anything that I planned or anything I was expecting. So at this point, I was intellectually, again, it was all in my head. I was, meditating, and I changed my diet, and and I was doing things physically to try to have an experience. I wanted to see what it took. Not saying that you need to have meditation or you need to change your diet to have an experience, but in my mind, that's the work that it took for me to, I guess, allow myself to have it, if you will. But I was doing those things to try to see what would happen. And I was out walking the Florida Everglades and broad daylight, and just happened to just be looking up. It was cloudy sky, and I was looking up at the clouds, and then I experienced myself looking down from the clouds. It was just like, in an instance, I was looking on the ground, looking up at the clouds, and then in the next instance, I felt like I was in the sky looking down at the clouds, and then I was thinking to myself as I'm looking down at the clouds, like, okay, is this me? Like who is this? Is this me? And how am I seeing without eyes? This is what I'm thinking. How am I seeing without eyes? How am I thinking? And then as I question, who is this me? That's when I pop back into my body, and my awareness is behind my eyes. And from that point on, it was like I saw through the illusion of separation. It was just like seeing that all of it really is one thing. And not only that, the experience, and it's been like that ever since. It's like waking up in a dream. And again, we talk about things being hidden in plain sight. We may remember the nursery rhyme, row your boat down the stream, merrily, merrily, merry life's but a dream. And we've heard about people waking up in the dream, things of that nature. But I'm having that experience. That's the thing. It hasn't stopped. And it's it's a realization that I have every single day. Like, this is, to me, this is another layer of consciousness, and it's like tuning your radio to another frequency. And I know I'm nobody special, so it's like, well, damn, if this frequency exists, and this frequency is one where it's a oneness, then the place that I was in, the sleep state, was the separation, the illusion. So then, you realize, well, that's what they were talking about. Those people that are awake and they see through the illusion of separation, or see through the matrix, or awaken in the dream. To have that experience and realize that, damn, this is true, then it's like, well, this is the best news ever, because we really are these beings that is still a mystery. And we're exploring that, but it's definitely not what we've been told. Definitely more expansive. And yeah, since then, and since my experience, it's like it's almost an intellectual game, because I know what I'm experiencing. I can't prove it to you. I can't give you my experience. The only thing I can do is show you the possibility of it, and show you how I came to this realization. But I can't give it to anyone. But I can just be an example of it, and just show the possibility, and just keep speaking that. And the next phase of it is a bolder example, being more out front, to where the gatekeepers and the people that try to gaslight you and make you seem like you're crazy and all of these things, to really confront them, really. And it's not from a argumentative standpoint. It's let's compare value, let's compare facts. Let's put this out in the open. Let's not look at belief systems. We know what those are. Let's not look at dogma. We know what that is. I mean, we know what these things are. So let's not get caught up on these things. Is this true or not? Is this real or not? And I wouldn't have got to this point unless I questioned it myself. And now I'm waiting for someone else to prove me wrong. And so far, it hasn't happened. And it's not that I'm, anything special. It's just that this is what we are. It's the thing that I enjoy about how I try to approach it is I'm not giving anyone any set of beliefs, any doctrine. I'm not adding anything to the human being. I'm really just showing the human that the being part of them is actually more fundamental. They're more being than they are human. And removing the programming and the things that we've been told that we are, to reveal what we truly are. So, and just trying to look at ways to do that, and bumping my head and talking to people and learning from those experiences. So that got me to this point. But yeah, my experience from a day-to-day basis is like being awake in a dream, like playing a video game, and we're all the player and the controller. Some of us just think we're just the controller.
Right. That's a great way of putting it. And you had just put out a video within the last couple of days of you like getting up from sleeping, getting up, and you have this cool little diagram at the bottom. It says like, maybe this is where, you are before you're born. Maybe this is where you go at night. Maybe this is where you go when you die. And that just resonated with me so hard, because like I have the most ridiculous, craziest, vividest dreams imaginable. And like I have self-medicated all through my life. I mean, less so now, but they can be bad. They're not always terrible, but they're usually at least bad. At least in a way that I feel like I get no rest. A lot of the times in these dreams, I can live days, weeks, months, and yeah, I could go through a couple of the dreams, but I've done it on the podcast a couple of times. I don't want to get too repetitive, but and I've messed around a little bit with astral projection, which I actually got to test scientifically not too long ago, as to whether or not what you're seeing when you astral project is a real representation of reality, or if it's something completely different. So I was in the middle of a sleep-wake kind of a state, and my roommate had come home. And so I decided that I was going to jump out and see what he was wearing. I did this in the dream to see if I could make sure. So it's like when you astral project, it's like there's no gravity, and like you're like pulling at like furniture and doorways to try to get through the areas you're trying to get to, and then you get to somewhere and you got to stop yourself, and it's like it's really screwed up. But like when I got to him, he was wearing like a yellow flannel, and his face wasn't his. The faces I see in this realm are never his. They're actually pretty scary. It's like a faceless face. And so, like, he kind of came at me aggressively, so I popped the fuck out. I got back into my body, and I came back out, and I saw him, and he was wearing a red flannel. And so, I mean, the fact that it was a flannel doesn't mean much. He's always wearing flannels. But I just wanted to see if it was a true representation of reality. But he was in the kitchen, which I could have sensed through... but it's just like a weird kind of confluence of things. I wanted to see if it was like, if I could see things outside my body, which I had always wondered about. And so it led me to the fact that this realm is something entirely different. It's not the same, but I think it's like this intermediate state of which maybe because of wherever my frequencies are, this place that I go is kind of dark. It's not a place to go for spiritual endeavors, or maybe it is, maybe it's just like my interpretation of it. But anytime I'm in it, I always feel as if I'm being attacked. But maybe that's like the spirit realm telling me that I've got some work to do. That could be an interpretation. But also, I've always been fascinated and even obsessed with dreams and time, and the relation between this realm and time, and the because I think they might all happen in different places, but be related to the same thing. We've got our reality, the in between, the pure spirit realm, and so I kind of wanted to get your take on that. I wanted to see where you view all these things in relation to time. There was Plato once had the great like philosophical exercise, the thought experiment: is time a river that we're looking at that's rushing past us, or that we're looking away from and is rushing away from us?
Yeah. So you said a lot there. So just going back to the dream thing, because I just want to hit on a point there, is we tend to talk about where do we go after we die, but we never really talk about where do we come from before we're born. So, the whole post you were talking about was kind of playing on that idea. And if that place is the same place that we visit when we sleep, right? And I think they are related. I think that we're multi-dimensional beings. So we're experiencing, we may be focused on one particular level, but there's part of us on all levels. And where our attention is right now, our attention is in this reality. That doesn't mean that there's a part of us wherever it is, right? In the non-local consciousness field. So I talk about consciousness being non-local, and in this reality, the mainstream science would make consciousness seem like it's an effect of the brain and it's a result of complex this, that, and the other. But I'm arguing and saying that consciousness is primary, and this reality is actually built on it within consciousness, within the ocean of consciousness, basically. If you can imagine, consciousness is this thing that vibrates this reality into existence. But consciousness is the base level. And as conscious beings, we're all participating in that base level and in the creation of the vibrations. And that's what we're experiencing now. So to go back to your analogy of time, and I talk about, because we'll get into the things we can talk about now with the vocabulary and the things that we can explain now that they were probably talking about in the old days and in the ancient days, but didn't have the vocabulary, didn't have the technology and things to back it up. But we can talk about a quantum being now, being in multiple states at the same time. So talking about time, I feel that we do experience time linearly, but there's also a part of us that's outside of time, the non-local consciousness It's what space-time is within. So there's a part of you, the conscious part of you, that's outside of space-time. So there's a part of you that's experiencing time, and then there's a part of you that is outside of time. And then one of the ways I try to show people the potential of this is I'll say, just look at your life. Okay, you've observed your life from the same consciousness observed your life since you were a baby to this point. You observed your body grow, you observed everything, right? Now, you observed age, you observed time, but did your consciousness age? You know, I'm arguing that your consciousness observed the whole thing and doesn't age and didn't age. It experienced age, it experienced time, it experienced this being that it's looking at in the mirror, growing up and getting gray hairs and all of this stuff. But the consciousness that sees it didn't age a day. It didn't age a day. So that's just one way to kind of look at it from a thought experiment. But I feel we experience it both ways. It's like, I use this analogy as well. I try to use a lot of different analogies because what I found is parables are a good way to kind of explain things because they work on different levels, and you never know what somebody would click with. So I look at it as look at the gaming analogy. Use this game. So this game here, right? Little Big Planet, right? So this game, if I play this game, everything that I can do in this game is on this disc. It all exists in this disc. But as I play it, I experience it linearly, right? But everything that experienced linearly, there's a being that's outside of this. Like imagine this being space-time, and we're playing the game of space-time, which is what we're doing now in this reality. But there's a part of us that's outside of it. And it's like if you were to design a game that was super cool and you enjoyed playing it, but you knew everything about it. You knew every twist, you knew every turn. You created the game. You knew exactly how everything was going to work. It would kind of be boring. You wouldn't be able to be surprised. You wouldn't be able to learn anything. So imagine a game developer developing a game and getting inside the game and playing it, but deciding to not remember that they developed the game so they can experience the whole game, experience what it's like to feel the fear, to feel the excitement, to learn something and all of that. And I feel that's kind of what we're doing now. We're the developer that's inside of its own game, inside of the space-time. And we play the game for a little bit and then we come back out. We have the experience of playing the game. And that experience adds to that non-local consciousness of what we are. So we're evolving ourselves. The universe is evolving through us, through this reality.
Huh. And I think about this all the time too. Like if there is some type of predisposition, if there's some type of like design to each of our individual lives prior to us experiencing it, it's somewhat kind of cruel that certain conditions have to exist for certain things to happen. Right, like this person has to become a drug addict so that they can overcome that and learn that the most difficult thing in their life was overcome so that they can achieve the other great things. But some people never get out of that. Some people live that life to its conclusion in the terrible way. But, you know, if you take it, and I wonder how wide it goes too, right? Like, does this group of people here have to experience a terrible life so that these people over here can, you know, benefit from that terribleness in a way that benefits the whole, right? Like, I wish I could think of a good example off the top of my head, but like, let's say that, you know, there's this, like, let's say there's this widespread societal thing that's not being addressed until this group of people has an incredibly terrible experience, all loses their life, in order for this one person over here that had a similar experience to them, let's say it was drug use, and finally gets legislation enacted, like if that was going to be the thing that solves it, legislation enacted to solve that particular problem because he related with them. You know, I might be muddling up the metaphor, but like I've always wondered how wide and deep that all goes, right? Like how the game has to be structured in order for a certain outcome to happen. You know, it's the age old question of like, if God exists, why does he allow children to starve in a third world country, kind of thing?
Yeah.
You know, but the way that I kind of reconcile that is like, everything has to exist. Every type of experience, from the worst to the best, has to exist, and all that strange in between too. You know, and I'm sorry,
Yeah.
were you gonna say something?
Yeah, because I've thought about that as well. Like how could a loving God allow, these things to happen and these things to happen, and why didn't God step in for this or for that? And there's a couple of different ways to look at it. From a physical standpoint, my perspective is it's based on. So to me, karma is not you do something and you're like something bad happens to you because of something that you did, and it's karma and it's coming back to you. To me, karma is just action. It's just action and reaction. So in this reality, there are it's like no rules pretty much. There's the whole idea of right and wrong, good and evil. Those are subjective things, right? Um, right to me could be wrong to you. I can think of, killing is bad, but I can think of a situation where I would kill someone in a heartbeat, right? Like if someone harmed, my little goddaughter, I wouldn't think twice about, hurting that person, right? But I'm not a violent person, but there's a time for that. So it's not like a hard left and right deal, a hard good and evil. This reality is one of free will and free choices, and to experience the results of our actions. And some of those actions are accumulated over a long time of us just being unaware and just there's momentum that's built up. So that kid that's starving, God's not making that kid starve, or it's not God's fault. God created everything for that and created abundance. I'm sure we have enough food to feed everyone on the planet, but our karma is the system that we've allowed to be created, or a part in creating, has created scarcity for some and abundance for some. So it's not God's fault. You can't blame God that we're allowing the system to perpetuate, because we have free will. So to me, a God of love would allow you to learn your own lessons. And that's part of what we're dealing with now, learning our own lessons. And some people need to only bump their head once. Some people need to continually bump their head. And we're all on the different spectrum of it, but it has nothing to do with someone outside of you, in the way I look at things. So I don't blame God for anything that happens, bad or good, because if it wasn't for that creative source, and regardless of what happens on this physical plane, we're more than that anyway. So there's a part of us that's good, regardless of what happens here. You know, that's one of the things that they talk about. Regardless of what happens, all is good. That's a level that a lot of people don't get to because they're just so focused on the physical aspect of it, and they may not see that that loving a loving being would allow you to learn your own lessons and have your own experience, and not try to limit you in one way or the other. I mean, that force is not a limiting force. So to intervene is to limit someone on one level or another. So I feel that doesn't happen, because that's not our core. Our core is expansion, liberty, and yeah, that expansion and liberty and freedom also allows you to be free to do some messed up stuff, and you may experience some of that messed up stuff, but it has nothing to do with God or an outside force. It's our getting back what we put out, and I think that's the fairest way to really do things. And we're experiencing a lot of control in this reality, and a lot of it's been attributed to deities, if you will, because some people equate, if it's good, God did it, and if it's bad, the devil did it. But we fail to realize our parts of it, whether we're active in it or just allowing it to happen. Because sometimes inaction is still a choice. not doing nothing is still a choice. So that's kind of how I look at that. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, well, that's a beautiful and a very hopeful sentiment, actually, that personal choice and personal action is really what's at the root of what a lot of people call, these problems that are created by the God and the devil.
Yeah.
It's really what we do with the free will that has been gifted to us, because we don't see a lot of other creatures that have the same free will. They never really get outside of their more baser instincts. So we were given free will in order to do with the abundance that has been given to us. And if things turn out horribly, it should all rest on the shoulders of the people that did it, whatever part we played with it, like you said, even if that's through inaction.
Yeah, and if we are all fractals of the same consciousness, if we're all God's experiencing our own creation, then who's going to limit who, and who benefits from that? And it's like a big multimedia role-playing game where we're all characters in it. No character is better than the other, and we're all just placed in this. And this is how we learn. This is a big sandpit, but everyone here is part of the same thing, comes from the same thing. So it's at the end of the day, we're experiencing the same things that we're putting out. So it has nothing to do with God or the external force. We're learning from our own mistakes, but we're interacting with each other, and we're learning as a whole from that. And hopefully humanity learns from this lesson, because sometimes it takes going through some negativity or a bad situation and there's a lesson that could be learned, that this is not what we want. Even a bad relationship, you can learn from it to say, I don't want to be with that kind of person anymore. So then when the next person comes along, if you've learned your lesson, then you can see those traits or those characteristics or that same type of energy and avoid it. And that may save you time and heartache in the future, because you had this experience with this person that you learned from. So I think, and that will make you a better and stronger person. And I think humanity is going through that. And the future for humanity that I see is where we'll be that example of coming from that. It is going to make us stronger, and we're not going to fall back, because we're going to know how painful it was to be there, and we're not going to allow that to happen again. So that's kind of, I feel we're in that transition phase, and we're really, the things that are being uncovered are really our own workings. We're really seeing ourselves clearer. Like the mirror has kind of been foggy, and now it's really clean, and we can really look and see that this is us. And the thing with the mirror, the reflection doesn't change until we change. I can look in the mirror till I'm blue in the face and wait for the mirror to smile. The mirror only smiles when I smile internally. So I smile, then the mirror smiles. So, when we realize that, and when we see things need to change, and stop waiting for it to change, and we change it.
Hell yeah. And that's where I think I'm going to wrap it up, Vic. That is a beautiful, beautiful sentiment. Hey, man, can you let the people know where they can find all your work?
Yeah, absolutely. Vikter Bang, VIKTERBANG. You can find me on TikTok. You can find me on Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. And also you can look on the website. And it's all there. Vikter Bang stands for victory over noise. Just saying that there's a lot of noise in this reality, but there's a part of us that's above the clouds. And, spiritual journey is really about, and sometimes it's turbulent to get through the clouds, but it's worth the effort. The sailing is much smoother up there. And that's kind of the rationale behind the name. But yeah, it's all there on the socials, and you'll see the journey and the stuff that I'm doing now and the stuff I'm going to continue to do in the future.
Fantastic. Thanks a lot for coming on the show again, Vic.
Yeah, appreciate it, man. Enjoyed it, Jay. Enjoyed it, man.
Me too.